President-elect Trump has been needling you a bit, calling you Governor Trudeau, talking about making Canada the 51st state. Did you have any interaction with him today?
No, not today. But that's not going to happen. Canadians are incredibly proud of being Canadian. One of the ways we define ourselves most easily is, well, we're not American.
Watching this clip the other day reminded me of when I first moved to this country 20 years ago. I moved from the States along with my parents, and I would ask people, what makes you Canadian? Tell me something that's interesting about Canada. And I got all sorts of ways that people would identify themselves. Well, we have free healthcare here. Um, we have a monarchy. We're a parliamentary system, and then people would also throw in, well, we're not Americans, and I found that very strange. Why would you identify yourself with negation? Like a Bangladeshi person wouldn't identify themselves by saying we're not a Pakistani, or um, an Australian wouldn't say, well, we're not a New Zealander, or a South African wouldn't say, well, I'm not a Kenyan, right? Like it's very strange, and I think a reason why someone would identify that way is maybe a lack of a strong identity. That's the only thing I can think of. Like me being a citizen now, I can think of many ways to identify myself as a Canadian, but I would never go with, well, I'm not an American. I can talk about the history, the landscape, the warmth of the people, the sacrifices that Canadians have made for me to have this comfortable life here in Canada, all the achievements in science and technology and engineering and medicine. That makes this country very unique. I mean, it's a country with a huge landmass, with a small population, yet we have done so much. It's quite amazing. And I think the Prime Minister could have done a better job making his case by giving a whole lot of other descriptions of what makes us unique, what makes us strong. And I think he really devalued himself by saying we're not Americans. I mean, his audience are Americans in this particular show. And just think what they would think. And I'm putting on my American hat here, growing up in the United States. If I heard a prime minister from my neighbor, from my north, say, "Well, we're not Americans," that's one way to identify. I'd be like, why would you identify as yourself as not American? Obviously, you're not American unless you want to be American and you're having an identity crisis. Like that's the way I would think. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And I think this conversation can lead to another conversation, which is what makes Canadians Canadians. And I think it's time that we really focus on what makes us unique and from the rest of the world, and have a really solid identity that's divorced from um, American identity, right? And I hope I can carry on that conversation with many of you in terms of what makes us Canadians. My personal take is that we are unique in the world in the sense that we're a small population with a big landmass. We need to depend on each other. We need to help each other out. It's very unique. We don't have tons of major cities dotted all across the landmass. We're a handful of major cities, a whole lot of towns and villages, and we really depend on each other. And I think through that dependency, we have created a unique culture where we understand when other people are in pain. We jump in to help each other out. Um, I think the landscape makes us more hardy. Um, it gives us grit. So yeah, I think it's important that we have this conversation. Um, really have a um, honest conversation of about what makes us Canadians. I mean, we share a lot of similarities with the Americans, but just because we have a lot of similarity doesn't mean there aren't a lot of differences that makes us who we are. And I think this is a conversation worth having. And I would like to know, why go there? Why even go and say, well, we like to identify ourselves by saying we're not Americans? I mean, what do you think? It doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, peace, love, Canada.